Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey y'all, how's everybody doing out there? I am back in Santa Fe after my trip last week to Breath Camp in Colorado, and I'm feeling welcomed back home by a weather forecast of lots of late afternoon monsoons every day, kind of for the foreseeable future. So that feels kind of nice, like the good old days, getting some good water here in the desert. I'm personally trying to squeeze out the last days of summer before we're in back to school mode, into that routine. My daughter's starting kindergarten in early August, which feels really early, but here we go, on to the next chapter of the schooling adventure. New school, new elementary parenting. We'll see what that's like. So yeah, I'm definitely squeezing out these last few days of summer, last couple weeks of summer with a lot of outdoors time. And then I'm also feeling that kind of pressure that starts to build in end of summer, about kind of, fall's around the corner next, after August comes September, and that's the kind of get your shit together month. Where there's, pressure to kind of have everything set up for the fall because, the holiday season and winter comes and the election and all of the things come so fast after August. So feeling pressure to kind of get my business and my offerings ready for the fall. And so it's one of those interesting energies right now of being in the dog days of summer and the kind of like meat of the heat, but also starting to get that tickle of the next season approaching. So how are you all feeling out there? There's definitely been a lot going on in the larger world of society and politics. Lots of changes afoot. I got back into kind of service range after my trip, or after a little day trip out of service, and that was the day that the Microsoft incident had happened, and all of the global technological systems were kind of shut down, so that felt a bit jarring, that blue screen of death. And I know that's still being figured out in a lot of ways. And then just before recording this is Sunday, just found out that Biden was dropping out of the race and Kamala was being nominated in his place for the Democratic nominee. So yeah, probably don't even need to state it. It's going to be known by tomorrow when this is released, but just, lots of change. Nothing that's a huge surprise, but every day brings, a new bit of reality, a new bit of information to this world that we're living in. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's definitely kind of a challenge to stay grounded in the moment, even after spending a week breathing intentionally. As we lean into these dog days of summer and we transition also from Cancer season to Leo season, I'm starting to notice all around me and the people I'm talking to how easy it is to feel overwhelmed with all of the thoughts of the future and all of the present moment needs and desires as well. Cancer and Capricorn, the axis of the full moon that happened yesterday, Sunday, are all about care and nurturance from those different perspectives of planning for the future, strategizing, looking ahead in the realm of Capricorn. And then Cancer, finishing up that season yesterday, is all about being in the present moment and being attuned to the needs of the people around you in the present moment. And so there's definitely been a big polarity, a big emphasis on that axis as we move into this next season, this next polarity of Leo and Aquarius. So I think, for me, nature is definitely the most grounding thing when feeling overwhelmed. So for anybody out there that's feeling overwhelmed, if you can get a little nature time in, every day, a walk around the block, I would definitely recommend it. For me, it's after spending a solid week in, a much more an environment that had a lot of big trees and nature hikes right out the door. It was really, really grounding. And I think that, hanging out with a tree or a creek or a cloud ultimately makes it easier to slow your breaths and to feel into your body than when you're scrolling on a phone or, deep in the realms of society, zipping around doing errands in town. So if you can take 5 minutes daily for interrupted or uninterrupted and intentional time, hanging out with a pet rock, watching a bird out the window, or ideally stepping outside and watching that bird, or, petting the mane of your cat to welcome Leo season. This is your official invitation to do that, to get into the natural world as a easy way to start slowing your breaths down and staying grounded in the present moment. So here we are. Leo season is today, the 22nd. The sun is ingressing from Cancer into Leo, and that is a big change of energy from Cancer season. We are still in the gate that spans Cancer and Leo season. Started last Thursday and lasts till next Wednesday. So in the I Ching and human design and Gene Keys realm, the gate that we're currently in today until Wednesday is gate 56, which is known as the gate of stimulation. And then Wednesday through Sunday, the sun will be transiting into gate 31, or the gate of influence. So some themes for the week ahead are coming out of our shells, embracing our lion's mane, traveling, wandering, and telling stories, adventure and stimulation, the intoxicating feeling of mutual attraction, and humble leadership. So a good range of interesting themes to deal with this week. Looking at the Wheel of the Year diagram, which you can always find at astrosomatics.substack.com or at Cycles of Time podcast on Instagram. That diagram is pinned to the top of this multi-dimensional, multicultural Wheel of the Year. We are looking at the medicine wheel direction. We're still kind of in the end of the southern direction, moving soon into the west. And that's the season, this direction of fire and the direction of youth in the medicine wheel that I work with. The Wuxing Taoist Chinese elemental cycle, we are in the season of fire and kind of starting to transition into the season of earth. Earth is kind of a late summer transitional season before we get into the middle of fall. And so we'll definitely talk more about Earth in the coming weeks. But we're still kind of, in that fire energy. There's still a lot of action happening in both of those systems. The zodiac season, we are now in Leo from July 22nd to August 21st. And the phase of the moon is waning away from that full Capricorn full moon. And like I mentioned in the I Ching, we are in hexagram 56, which is fire over mountain, the gate of stimulation. And then moving in on Wednesday to gate 31, the gate of influence, which is lake over mountain. So, out like a crab, in like a lion is the subheader for the first part of this podcast. Today we're saying goodbye to Cancer season and welcoming in a graceful, expressive pride of lions for the next month ahead. So get ready for a much more outwardly expressive season than the one we were just in. I'm curious if you are welcoming the pride or more keen to stay in your shell as we transition between seasons. There's always a little bit of that, like, I'm not ready for this next type of energy when something's shifting. So curious to know how y'all are feeling about it out there. I posted on the Astrosomatic Substack version of this podcast, the written transcript version. There's a video of a crab versus a pride of lions. It's like this single freshwater crab versus a group of lions at the Mala Mala Game Reserve in South Africa. And it's this viral video where it's like lions versus crabs. So I thought it was very appropriate. I invite you to check that out. It's pretty entertaining to watch this crab just really fend for itself against this massive pride of lions. For me, Leo is my rising sign. So it's the sign that was, coming up over the horizon when I was born. And so I feel like this season always ushers in big New Year energy for me. And Cancer is in my 12th house. So the 12th house is always the one right before your rising sign. And so I'm leaving behind the depths of my Cancer 12th house, which is the house of hidden things and secrets and depths and spirituality and kind of merging with the other. And I'm stepping into my Leo first house of the self, appearance, identity, kind of the me house. This is like, the ascendant welcomes the first house of just like, who am I differentiated in the world? So, what house does Leo live in your chart? I'm curious to know it. The house placements always affect kind of how the energies show up. And for me, Leo being outwardly fire, expressive, definitely also lends itself to that first house energy. They kind of combine pretty well. So I wrote an article that's coming to you today. So you might be getting 2 emails if you receive this podcast via the Substack email. It just aligns where the first day of Leo season and a Monday are aligning. So you're going to get a deep dive into Leo season, Sun's ingress into Leo from my monthly contribution to Astrum Opus, which is an astrology collective of a lot of brilliant astrologers who write different divination practices and minerals and stones and herbs and tarot practices and celebrity chart interpretations. So if you don't follow Astrum Opus on Substack, I recommend doing so. They're really awesome. And I write a monthly article about the sun ingress into the sign. So today, to start out, I'm going to read you a little bit of that article on the podcast, just as an intro to Leo season. And I invite you to click on the link in the show notes to read more about Leo season from that article, and also subscribe to the Astrum Opus Substack for a lot of great content from a team of really cool people. So, Leo, I like to look at the signs. What I've been doing this year for this Astrum Opus project is looking at the signs through the context of the body, kind of the zodiac man, the correlations of our human body and the wheel of the zodiac. And I also like to look at it through the life cycle, the human life cycle, like where Leo shows up from infancy to death. There's this whole sequence, a whole cycle of stages that we go through as from birth to death, as well as from the head down to the feet. And I think that these parallels are really intriguing. And so each month I've been writing a little bit about that and providing a guided meditation that kind of gets you into an embodied feeling of that, the signs' energies. So in the body, Leo, the sign of the lion, rules the heart. So Cancer season that we're just coming out of rules the breasts, the womb, the stomach, these parts of the body that are nurturing and nourishing and also kind of ever-changing, their digestion, their providing milk, providing life, and they're also shedding their skin all the time, shedding their lining all the time, kind of like a crab sheds its shell frequently. And then we move along to Leo, and Leo rules the heart, the front of the heart, and also the back of the heart, the upper back and the spine. And just as Leo's ruler of the sun is the orbital center of the solar system, the heart is the orbital center of our circulatory system, the organ that pumps oxygen-filled blood through our entire bodies. And it's really kind of a center of gravity within our bodies. So the heart center and the backbone exemplify the essential nature of Leo, the proud feline, the courageous lion, the quintessential king of the jungle. During the season of late summer, before Virgo's harvest, the fruits of the entire year hang heavy on the trees and vines, ready to be shared and enjoyed in the present moment. In the same vein, Leos tend to have a lot of strength, stamina, and abundance in their bodies and are known for their longevity and their vitality. Also, the word courage is often associated with the lion. You think of the moment in The Wizard of Oz when the cowardly lion gets his courage back. And while the Tin Man was the one happy to get a heart in The Wizard of Oz, the word courage originates from the Latin cor, or the French coeur, which translates to heart. So courage is a heart-centeredness. It's bravery from the heart, living from the heart. And so not being brave in your mind or through your ego, but through that heart center. And so it really strikes me that Leo is connected to the heart. And, Leos can get a bad rep for being egotistical and self-centered and overly proud. But I'd say a strong Leo in their element embodies the nature of the radiant sun and the courageous heart center. To a Leo in their prime, there's no shortage of love, generosity, and expressive care for all of the animals of the kingdom. I grew up with The Lion King as one of my, pivotal Disney movies that I knew all too well. Probably could recite that entire movie from beginning to end. But I think that you just think about that Pride Rock that Simba is anointed on to as being the king of the jungle. And it's really a responsibility, a heart-centered responsibility to be aware of the circle of life and tend to it as a leader in that way. I think Leo wants more than anything to share their heart with others and to use their strong spines to take leadership roles and stand up for what they believe in. Some systems of thought also include the spleen as a body part ruled by Leo, and the spleen is responsible for filtering the blood, controlling the balance of blood cells, and fighting infection. So it's another organ of the circulatory system in that way, like the heart. And this body part association highlights the vitality and the protective nature of the lion, a fierce and fearless leader who would step forward to loyally protect those within their domain. So this Leo season, throughout all of the transits and ups and downs of life, I invite you to embody these transits of Leo and to carry you through the month with courage and pride and love, protection, vitality, optimism, stamina, and abundance. Whether you have planets or luminaries in Leo or not, we all have Leo as a part of our birth charts. So in times like the ones we're living through, let the lion-hearted one radiate through you this season. In the life cycle, stepping into another association with Leo, we are moving from the adolescence of Cancer season, where, you look at Cancer season in the summer is kind of a time of intense heat, the solstice, the hottest days of summer, when sometimes we want to retreat into our shells a little bit, like an adolescent, go into our room, close the door, put the keep out sign on. And also, just noting the ever-changingness of adolescence, how much is going on in our bodies, how much is changing when we are in our teenage years, and how we can sometimes be hard-shelled at that time as well, like the crab, kind of hard to crack. But after that season in life, we enter the stage of life ruled by the lion, which is kind of like our late teens, 18, 19, and into our roaring 20s. So, the 1920s were known as the roaring decade of the past century. And we're in the 20s again. How roaring are they? I don't know. That will yet to be known. But we hear of the 1920s as the roaring 20s. But I'd also say that the years of our 20s in our lifespan in relation to other decades of our lives are also pretty roaring. And just a note that all of this lifespan, life cycle stuff is considering the average global modern day lifespan of about 75 years. So, back in the day when this astrology was being cultivated and created and the stories were being told, we lived a lot shorter lifespans, I think, probably. And so when I look into this analogy, into the life cycle, I'm kind of considering birth through like 75, 80 years. And I looked it up, and that is the average global modern day lifespan. I was curious because I thought maybe that was just in the US or in, Western countries or so-called developed countries, but globally, taking all countries into consideration, it's 75 years these days. So with that, being in our 20s, we've made it through the highs and lows and the hormones and first loves and first breakups of adolescence. And we've, closed the doors to our shells with keep out signs swinging long enough to learn about what we care about in ourselves, within our inner world, and also outside the realm of our home. And also we learn in Cancer season and our adolescence how we can care for ourselves rather than depending on a parental figure to give it to us, for example. So after a long incubation and many sheddings of shells, we emerge at, 18, 19, 20 with a certain pride, a certain steadiness, and a certain courage to face the world on our own terms. It takes a certain roar to bring ourselves out of the Cancerian mother's womb and into the great open plains of the lion pride, where we have to express ourselves and show our own light in order to survive and thrive and form our own prides, our own packs. So, like the modern day 20-something, the sign of Leo is known for its self-expression. Leos are known to own their quirks, defend their uniqueness, and sometimes get a bit carried away in their joie de vivre, their joy of life, romping through the social world and parties and friend groups, kind of like an eager lion cub ready to just go out and tumble and play into the elephant graveyard. For those of you who are Lion King fans, it's sometimes a little dangerous, but usually it's all in good fun, right? Leo, being ruled by the element of fire, is like fire, a strong, flexible, and full of vital life force. Kind of like that you look at fire, you look at a roaring fire, and you see how it can just jump from place to place. It can be just as lively in one spot and then move to another spot and be just as lively and, kind of able to turn on a dime. So, the lion, the fire, the heart, the 20-something human all carry the same quality of, flexibility and strength and just life force, right? We're alive in that era. Blood and spinal fluid are connected to this sign as well. So in the season of late summer, Leos are surrounded by the bounty of the earth. And like 20-somethings, they want to soak in the pleasures and sensations all around them as much as they possibly can before life gets more complicated, Virgo season, and the need for responsibility and getting your shit together kind of sinks in. So that is kind of the over-under of these metaphorical realms of Leo that I really like to lean into and just really think about all of the visualizations of these stages within cycles to comprehend Leo in a way that's beyond maybe the stereotypical idea that you might have in your head of a Leo. There's a quote by Helen Keller that you might have heard that is, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart." And I think that is a perfect quote for Leo season. It's just all about heart, the heartbeat, the fire, the rhythm, the joy of life. So I would love to hear how you think of Leos. Everybody's got something to say about Leos. They're definitely putting themselves out there. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship sometimes. I know I have a lot of Leo placements, and I feel a love-hate relationship with myself sometimes. Like, I'm extra, I'm too much. And then I'm like, no, I'm so in love with life. There's just so much of a big feels surrounding being expressive and outward. I've, of course, broken the Leo season into 6 human design or I Ching gates, as I do every month. So I've done a little review. I posted on the Substack the Instagram post that I made of the 6 human design gates of Cancer season, which, just to review, are extremes, inaction or stillness, provocation, beginnings, details, and stimulation. So looking back through that post, or looking back through those themes, it's interesting to kind of see what kind of story unfolds during these 6 micro seasons within a larger zodiacal season of Cancer. So yeah, I'm curious what story unfolded for you over the last month. Leo season here brings a whole new set of energies. And within the I Ching sequence, we transition from the lower trigram of mountain to the lower trigram of water. So if you remember from past episodes, or if you're new here, in the Fuxi sequence of the I Ching, which is the one that is used in human design and in the cycles of time wheel, the lower trigram stays steady over the course of 8 weeks. Essentially, and the upper trigrams, the 8 upper trigrams, change to form a new hexagram every 5 days. And so the lower trigram, that steady trigram, we started the spring equinox, Aries season, in thunder, and then we moved in Taurus season to earth, and then throughout Cancer season, we've parted Gemini in Cancer season. We've been in lower trigram of mountain. And now, within Leo season, we're going to move to the lower trigram of water. So those are kind of steady energies, steady elemental energies that stay with us through a course of 8 trigrams as the external energies are changing. So it's kind of like, how are we internally, through that elemental wisdom, reacting and responding to external energies as they shift and change throughout these gate changes. So I definitely want to do a class about this at some point, because I recognize that if you're not deep into human design or the I Ching, it can be a bit complicated just to hear these words. So as usual, I welcome you to let it flow off your back and just take whatever sticks, and if it doesn't, just let it roll. For the Leo season gates, I have included them in the Substack, and I'm not going to go through all of them here in the podcast in too much detail, but I will kind of read through them quickly. Basically, we start with stimulation on this week up until Wednesday. We move into influence. Then after that, there's the gate of retreat up until August 5th. August 5th to 10th is the role of the self. 10th to 16th of August is formalization, and the 16th to the 22nd is perseverance. So just hearing those words, what sticks out to me is self-leadership, influence, perseverance, strength. There's a lot of lion qualities going on with these words in human design. And also they're similar to the I Ching translations as well. So I am excited to create this Instagram post and dive into it a little deeper. It's always fun to make the gates that are coming up ahead and see what that story might be, and then look back on them and say, oh, cool, those micro seasons really did, come across in this way. So, in human design, I'm curious if you have any of these gates that are listed here. If you're into human design, it's gate 56, 31, 33, 7, 4, and 29. And if you have any of these gates active, that they will show up within this month, and you will maybe feel a certain reverence or something stand out to you about those gates. So I have several of these gates activated in my astrological birth chart. I have gate 7 and gate 4 activated. So those are the parts of the Leo sign in the sky that Mars and Venus were in when I was born. And I also have gate 31 activated, which indicates where Venus was when my mom was entering her third trimester with me in her belly. So human design takes not only your zodiac birth chart gates or planets and placements, but it also considers 88 days before you were born, which is when you are entering the third trimester of pregnancy, and according to the human design theory, kind of achieving a certain consciousness at that time. So it's looking at the planetary placements of the time you were born and also 88 degrees or 88 days just about before your birth, which makes it a very interesting system. And the pre-birth data is kind of like the unconscious or subconscious influences in your life. And then your birth data is kind of more like your personality or your conscious influences in your life. So the rising sign, which I mentioned, I'm Leo rising, and that's typically not included in a human design chart, but I do include it in my cycles of time readings where I look at these I Ching and human design gates. And so my ascendant is also in gate 31, along with my unconscious Venus. So needless to say, I'm pretty Leo heavy. I have a lot of activation, planetary activation of these gates within this season. So I will be curious to note how these energies show up in my life now that I'm conscious of them and I'm going through this project. I'm curious if you have any Leo placements in your chart. Let me know in the comments and I'll give you a little snippet of what gate, if you know your astrology and you know that you have a certain degree of Leo, I can tell you what gate that is in or what hexagram that's highlighting for a little more specific and nuanced information. So let's go Leo season. This week, as far as the energies of human design, I Ching, we are currently in gate 56 since last Thursday until this Wednesday, and then the sun will be transiting into gate 31 from Wednesday until Sunday. So gate 56, it is the gate of stimulation, and I looked back through my 6 gates of Cancer season, as this is ending Cancer season, and I put a screenshot from the crab versus lion battle video when I made this a month ago, because it just seemed stimulating, right? Pack of lions, pride of lions, battling with this little crab. It's a gate where we are just coming out of the gate of details last week, where we were kind of looking at the whole picture, like God is in the details, the devil's in the details, and rather than trying to keep hold of all the details, it's looking at details as a unified whole. So after gathering all of those details, last Thursday we entered the energy of stimulation, which is also known as the gate of the wanderer or the traveler. And a big component to gate 56 that we're in right now, and that the full moon was in yesterday, is storytelling. So just as a traveler seeks stimulation, seeks new experiences, seeks new towns to go through, new mountains to climb, the traveler also weaves yarns and stories with various people as they wander from place to place. So as the gate that spans the signs of Cancer and Leo, the gate 56 kind of crosses the threshold between internal water and external fire. And to me, it makes perfect sense that this would be a storytelling gate right after the gate of details, because it's kind of, time to take into consideration all of the details, all of the information that you've gathered internally and have accumulated in your inner world over the past month, where we've been reflective and going through a lot of change perhaps and being introspective. And then with the cusp of Leo season, we're going out into the world and making sense of what we've discovered inwardly through new experiences and conversations with others. In the gene keys, the shadow of the gift of the gate 56 is distraction. The gift is enrichment, and the city is intoxication. Richard Rudd, the founder of Gene Keys, the author of the book Gene Keys, says that to court the 56th gift is to learn to appreciate all aspects of life, all its myriad layers and levels, without judging them, without making anyone better than any other. That's the foundation we have to build, the cornerstone of intoxication. I really like that word, intoxication. And I was feeling it this past week too. I don't know about you. But yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the transit through this gate last Thursday, I definitely was feeling that energy of distraction. I had been in a focused breath camp session, went to about a dozen different hour-long breathes that were, guided through, and we had to remember a lot of details. We were being assessed for this final of an 8-month certification, and it was like remembering to list the contraindications, remembering to list all the physical, mental, and emotional sensations that can come up, remembering to ask if there's new breathers in the room, remembering to get a confidentiality agreement, remembering to get certain things signed. It's, all the details of what it takes to facilitate a guided journey of some kind. We're being judged and, by several different people. And so it was like a lot of details, kind of like, let's try not to get stuck on those details and get nervous about it and just look at it as this holistic picture of guiding a journey. And so that was it was an intense week for me. There was a lot of details and a lot of zooming out to the big picture from those details. But after a week there, and after Jackson and my daughter had been pretty much in between four walls in a hotel room playing with coloring books and stuff for a whole week so I could do this, all of us were feeling a little bit like, okay, it's time to go move some energy around. And I do feel like the energy of distraction and stimulation were calling, kind of like, let's go do something that's interesting in the outside world. I've had enough inward stuff, I've had enough emotions and processing come up, and I'm ready to go see something new. So luckily, perhaps, there was an alligator farm a couple hours away from the hot springs where we were hanging out, and it's this big giant alligator farm in the middle of rural Colorado. And I, thought, hey, that sounds stimulating, right? I mean, what's more stimulating than about 300 alligators in the desert? So we ended up stopping there. And what the story behind it is that there's a tilapia farm that started out raising tilapia for Colorado restaurants, and they bought 100 alligators, I think in the late 70s, to eat all the dead fish. And now it has turned into, a huge, stinky desert reptile exhibit, just right off the highway. And lots of cute hand-drawn alligator signs that lead you to it. So I was definitely looking for a distraction and something to occupy my 5-year-old's excessive energy with on a long road trip, kind of break up the road trip. And it also ended up being fairly enriching, as it would, as a new experience often is. So the gift of enrichment came through there as well as we sun transited through this gate. There's definitely something about how that age of child, 5-6 years old, soaks up new information that's super inspiring to be around a kid who is seeing new things for the first time. I've seen alligators before. I lived in Louisiana for almost a decade and went to the swamps, but it's still, it's hard to not be stimulated by the presence of such a creature. And there were about 300 of them, and also a bunch of snakes and massive snakes and monitors and some really muddy emus that were kind of being mean to each other. And it was definitely a scene. Definitely seems like a documentary, like Tiger King, if you saw that one, could be made about this alligator farm. And there was, they're making bank on it. I think there was $25 to enter, and you go through, over Alligator Bridge, and there's hundreds of alligators just behind a chain link fence, and a lot of cages with different reptiles and turtles, and then all the tilapia fish swimming on top of each other, and albino crocodiles, and you can hold a baby alligator, and it's definitely a scene. It's a thing. If you ever make your way towards south central Colorado, it is there. Take it or leave it. But yeah, watching my daughter, who has been really into undersea life lately, just like she knows so much about all of the different squids and octopus and fish and different creatures from undersea from a show she watches. She's always been schooling me in the details of that. But she got to hold her first corn snake and a baby alligator named Hot Ham and Cheese. And I guess all of the baby alligators are named after Subway sandwiches. So that tells you a little bit about the place. But she now is super interested in reptiles, and there's a lot of reptiles that live near us here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So it's good. It's good. She had her attention stimulated and got out of the groove of just being in a hotel room. So that served its purpose. And so, I felt stimulated as well. I don't know if Jackson was as interested in being around all these kind of too many alligators in too small of a space, but we did it, and we got out of our comfort zone a little bit. And then as soon as we got home, I think that sparked something in me, and the energy of stimulation of the week sparked something in me. So I was like, home is great, but it's summer. And I had looked at that weather forecast and seen the monsoons that were going to be happening for the next couple of weeks. And the day after we got home was the day that there weren't any late afternoon thunderstorms happening. So I was like, all right, fam, pop in the car. Let's go to a waterfall. So I took us all up to a waterfall hike that I loved doing as a kid and as a teenager. And it is a beautiful hike at Nambe Pueblo in Nambe, New Mexico. And it involves walking upstream through a river and a little bit of rock climbing, scrambling over some rocks, and then the potential to climb a waterfall and going through a big slot canyon through the river. So it has a certain amount of adventure and excitement for a pretty short hike, so a kid can do it. And as a teenager, I got a lot of my adrenaline and adventure fixes out there. So I was pretty set on going back, because I haven't been back for a very long time, many years, since I've moved back to the States. So it was definitely a continuation of the week of stimulation, I'm realizing. And it was definitely a trip to watch groups of teenagers there helping each other up the slippery rock walls to the higher waterfalls. And it brought back so many memories to me related to being a teen, seeking independence, going there with groups of friends, doing some risk-taking, rock climbing, jumping off the dam. Definitely not allowed to do that anymore. But it was just kind of a certain out in nature rebellion with friends. There was a senior ditch day from the high school that often happened at this spot, and a lot of camping trips as a teenager and experimentation of many kinds out at this place. So I hadn't been there in a long time, and getting back there with my own daughter was like definitely a big flashback, a big telling myself a lot of stories, like thinking about this being a storytelling gate, a gate of travelers, wanderers, stimulation. There were just a lot of stories that came back that were very poignant in my childhood and adolescence. So, as I said earlier, I relate Cancer season to the adolescent and teen stage of life. So having this gate as the final energy of Cancer season felt kind of like a distillation of the energy of the sign, especially visiting this waterfall. And yeah, I hadn't flashed back to my preteen and teenage years as heavily as I did hanging out at that waterfall a couple days ago, watching my daughter my daughter's splash in the river reminded me of myself splashing in the river as a little kid with my parents, and then seeing kind of the ghosts of my preteen self climbing the rocks across the pool to sit and be moody, and get away from my parents a little bit, and then seeing my later teen self, ghosts of that person with a pack of friends kind of showing off to each other as we climbed up the falls. I just stood by the waterfall and didn't climb it this time. My daughter really didn't want me to. But just watching these packs of teens go up and kind of how they were showing off to each other, but also helping each other out. It just felt like there's that Cancer energy and the pinnacle of Cancer energy. And yeah, there was like an adrenaline and a sense of pride in doing a physical feat like that felt intoxicating at that time in my life. And I still felt it. I felt that exuding from the teens that were up there a couple days ago. And that's the siddhi of this gate in the Gene Keys, that lust for life, that kind of intoxication of the travel, the new experiences, the wandering. So, entering Leo season with this gate, 56, highlights the stimulation-seeking nature of our late teens and early 20s, kind of looking to create exciting stories for the future and also to revel in shared experiences and adventures. And yesterday was the Capricorn full moon. And so after having these adventures of alligators and waterfalls and meeting a whole bunch of new people in this breath work session, a parent friend of mine, our kids became friends at preschool and we met through them. And so we hung out yesterday on the full moon and our kids played and we sat in my hot tub for many hours, probably a little too long, but it was great. And we just told so many stories. There were so many stories that were springing to mind for me and also for her. And yeah, just kind of about the alligators and the waterfalls and about our youth and our upbringing and about the past 4 years since 2020 and about becoming mothers. And so sharing stories in this way, it really did feel like we were weaving our stories together, and it was truly intoxicating as well. We had one cocktail in the hot tub, but it was really the intoxication of being in that storytelling place that I was really feeling and feeling seen and also seeing someone else through their stories. So it really showed up for me this week, this gate of stimulation. And I'm curious how it showed up for y'all out there. It's just so fun to look at these micro seasons and see what they mean. The next gate that we're entering this week, which is the first full gate of Leo season, expands on that intoxicating and shared energy. So next on Wednesday, we are entering gate 31, which is the gate of influence, and it's also known as mutual attraction. And that is my ascendant gate and also my unconscious Venus gate. So I'm excited to feel how this feels in real time now that I'm aware of it. So the sun's moving into gate 31. It's known as influence, which makes sense for the first gate of Leo season. Lions are quite influential creatures in the animal kingdom, I would say. In the I Ching, hexagram 31 is known as mutual attraction, and it's also known as conjoining or wooing. So I thought those were kind of all good words for this energy. The two elemental trigrams that make up the hexagram for gate 31 is lake over mountain. And I didn't mention the last gate, 56 hexagram, which is fire over mountain. So everything that I just said about the traveling, intoxicating, enriching, stimulating sensations of the past week, you can kind of think of as fire traveling quickly over a mountain. A wildfire, how quickly it moves and wanders from place to place. And now, moving into 31, lake over mountain. There's a quote from Café au Sol, who does a lot of writings about the I Ching, and it says, "The lake nourishes the mountain, while it is the mountain that causes the rain to fall and fill the lake. Wooing is the idea of seeking win-win solutions where all parties benefit by coming together. In courtship, something profound happens between individuals who feel a mutual attraction. While they may not understand why, they just feel more complete being together. The hidden influence of coming to meet suggests that you are attracting the experiences of which your mind is currently focused. Woo your experiences the way a suitor would woo another. Focus on the positive, complimenting life for making you stronger and wiser. Cherish the gifts that come to you each day. Smile as it makes you attractive. Where the underlying cause of evaluation or decrease was a period to understand loss and how to make the best of it, the time has now come to open up to how life is affecting you. Open to how you are affecting life with your outlook. So Gate 31 is about how we influence our lives and experiences by attracting what we want into them. It is a gate of natural leadership, and it's embedded with the wisdom that empowered people empower others, and disempowered people disempower others. So people with this gate active in their charts, if they're courageous enough to step into their heart-centered leadership potential of the lion, they can become influential by expressing the possibilities and potentials for a brighter future for everyone. Going to the gene keys, the shadow of Gate 31 is arrogance, the gift is leadership, and the city is humility. So at a lower frequency, the feeling of wooing and being wooed and mutual attraction can lead to these lion-like shadows of arrogance and excess pride. You know, when there's a mutual attraction felt, it can be like, oh, cool, I'm the shit, I'm the greatest. I'm sure a lot of us know somebody with a Leo placement or two, or you have it in your own chart, like me, where there's a sentiment of being self-centered or having an inordinately high opinion of oneself. And that's definitely a shadow of Leo. And so when someone with this gate defined is avoiding their gift of leadership and taking actions that only serve themselves, rather than looking out to the needs of the collective, that can be perceived and construed as arrogance, because they're typically expressive of their bounty in a certain way. And if it's not being used to collaborate and to serve others, then that can come across as the prideful nature of the lion. But then when someone with this gate steps into leadership in the right way, using that mutual attraction to serve and lead others based on a common need and a common goal, that arrogance tends to fade away perceptibly. And there are many leadership gates in human design, many hexagrams of the I Ching focused on leadership, but this specific gate is all about being elected into leadership through being recognized for your gifts. And it's kind of being in a situation of mutual attraction from people who recognize you, and also you recognizing yourself as able to lead from a place of integrity. So it has to come from both sides. It's a very magnetic gate, and it's not about taking leadership, taking it by the reins and saying, I'm going to lead, but it's being invited to lead and then saying, I think I am ready for that. I personally resonate with this gate a lot, and I know that when I am trying to lead something that doesn't need or want my leadership, it really feels off. It feels kind of dirty, and it doesn't end up working out as well, that situation. And then also on the other side, when other people want me to lead or invite me to lead, but I don't feel an integrity to do so, it also feels really off. It's like, I've definitely had that experience where people are like, oh, you take this, it seems like you got it, like you seem confident or something. But if I end up taking on leadership in a place where I feel like an imposter, it just doesn't work. It ends up going down a path of, just a really, really not a good situation. And so again, it has to be mutual. So, it's also known as the gate of the voice of the collective. And so somebody has to be attuned to more than just their own self to be in power in this gate. But you also have to be sure to include yourself and your feelings and your intuition within the realm of the collective. So, yeah, just like the lion, it's leading from a heart-centered place. And, Lion King, Scar, the hyenas. Scar was leading from a selfish place, wanting to take over and control power. Whereas Mufasa and later Simba were leading from a place of like vast awareness of the circle of life and their place within it, but not being above. Just that is how the circle of life goes. So, really good job, Lion King. I'm just can't help but coming back to that. At its city level of humility, not humidity, the city level of humility, there's the wisdom of the gate of influence is oneness. So seeing how interconnected we all are, the circle of life, humanity and nature and animals and the earth and the stars up above and the blades of grass, seeing that interconnection and the unity between all of them is the exalted level of this gate. And Richard Rudd from the Gene Keys says this about the 31st Siddhi. He says, the person manifesting the 31st Siddhi does not even see human beings as divided into those who are awake and those who are asleep. There's no such thing as being enlightened or unenlightened to such a person. If there were, that would assume the existence of separate beings rather than the reality of one unbroken chain of consciousness. Because the 31st Siddhi is truly humble, it has no agenda. It is not necessarily interested in freeing people from their illusions, even though it may unwittingly do so. Such a being realizes that it is not possible to influence anyone in this world. The 31st Siddhi says whatever it must say, knowing that the words come from the collective and go back into the collective. So, yeah, there's something to that about like not wanting to push, not wanting to work. You think about a lion, and most of the time I see a lion as like they're hunting, or they're like posing, or they're just sleeping. They're pretty lazy. They don't have an agenda. They're not trying to orchestrate all of the animals of the jungle, but they will step into leadership in a humble way if needed. And it's interesting to learn more about this gate at this moment in time for me, because I have felt in this particular case the shadow, the gift, and also the siddhi of this gate in various ways at various times of my life. As the part of the sign of Leo that was rising over the horizon when I was born, I do believe that I am perceived this way. A lot of times the rising sign is how you are perceived by others. And also kind of like what you radiate, like what you're shining out into the world. And so I'm aware, as I do more and more self-awareness, inward-looking self-awareness, and talk to more people about how they see me, I do know that I can come across as both overly confident to my detriment, or also can come across as inspiring and as a leader. And I've heard both of these things about myself at various times. So over the past week at my breathwork certification camp, I had the opportunity to meet a couple dozen new people. And I had never met them before because I had done the coursework for this last year, and this was a whole new cohort of people. So I got to meet, my teacher who I had had before, but new mentors, new peers, and just a whole bunch of new people. And I was a little bit intimidated by that and kind of thought I'd be on the sidelines, but it was beautiful to see how an experience like this can open people up and bond people, and just let you know about the multitudinous differences between people in a single 5-day setting when you're going so deep with everyone. And for my final breathwork journey, we all had to guide a breathwork journey and get assessed and kind of peer reviewed and reviewed by our mentors on how we did and if we included everything and what the overall vibe was. And so the theme that I chose for my final breathwork session was radiance and interconnection. And that definitely ties into the lion heart and also the circle of life, right? And it was all about that. So I thought that was kind of funny as I'm reading through Gene Keys and human design and Leo stuff and just hearing resonance with all of these words. So I guided people through a conscious meditative breath journey to recognize their inner radiance that comes from their heart. And then I led them to feel into how interconnected their personal radiance was within the web of others' radiance, other people's expansive hearts in the room. And several of the people breathing, when we had a chance to give feedback at the end, they said that the words that I spoke and the session that I led helped them see themselves as radiant beings, worthy of love, and their child selves being worthy of love, and interconnected with other people in a beautiful way. And there were a lot of tears. There was a lot of really beautiful emotion that was coming through, and it was really touching to see how radiance and interconnection and emphasizing those things really touched people and myself. It was a feedback loop. It felt beautiful. And then in the feedback session for my breath journey from the mentors and teachers of the course, I got some good constructive feedback about, certain ways I could phrase things better, or like how to overcome nervousness or be more humble about my nervousness. There was a time in the beginning that I was kind of obviously nervous and speaking quickly and not in my breath. As a breathwork guide, you want to be in your breath. So I got some feedback about, just being honest and humble about that. Like, hey, I'm feeling a little nervous now. I don't know about you, but that's okay. And so that was a learning related to the city of humility and, just being humble about whatever position you're in. But then I got some other feedback from people who were like, you felt like you were one of us. You weren't trying to be, there wasn't as much of a power dynamic. You broke the ice a lot and made people, you mentioned Inside Out 2 about emotions and made people laugh. And I don't know, I just kind of riffed. And some people gave me the feedback that made people feel comfort and trust. So it was like both and, right? About how to be humble in this essence. I also got some feedback that people said, you are radiant and you're already a pro. And one person said, I'm in awe. Like, where can I sign up for your next session? And that recognition of something that I had worked really hard to do and put a lot of thought into, getting recognized for it in a room full of people was really hard, actually, to take that in, because it did bring up that shadow for me about arrogance and feeling overly confident. And I wanted to just be like, no, like, shut up, like, no comment, please. But I stepped into it anyway, because I did, in that moment, after completing this session, I did feel an integrity with the recognition that I was receiving. And I have worked hard and put in a lot of time and intention to facilitate groups in this way. And it did feel deeply honoring to be able to lead people to find this inner recognition of beauty and radiance within themselves. And yeah, it felt like this full body, like, humility of just like, wow, this is such an honor to be able to do this work. And it felt really different than trying to lead something without being explicitly asked. Like for this, I was explicitly asked and I was told when I was going to go. I went last out of everybody in the group. So I was asked to do that. I was asked to go last. And it also felt really different than being recognized for something and asked to lead something that I didn't feel inwardly confident in or inspired by. Like sometimes I've seemed confident on the outside that I can do something, then I've been asked to do it and I've done it and it's just been wrong. But to feel inwardly confident and also inspired by the stuff, the content of what I was leading in was like, it just was like, click, mutual attraction. This is what that feels like. It was a super beautiful situation. So thank you for listening to that. And I hope I'm not coming across as really arrogant. It's such a fine line here. Yeah. Arrogance and humility as different sides of this coin of leadership. And I do strive to be a humble leader, a humble servant, because I do think that feels so good in the body to know that you're picking up on what everyone around you is putting down. So I love the totem of the lion. I do. And I'm happy to be a part of the lion's zodiacal pride. But such an expressive creature definitely comes with a lot of shadows and judgments and misunderstandings. And this past week for me has given me a much deeper insight into how these energies from my birth chart show up in my life and how to deal with the shadows of them. And so I'm excited to look deeper into the gates over the coming month, these more specific micro seasons and how they show up in my chart, in y'all's charts. And I would love to, I'm going to have a guest on in a couple of weeks here, a wonderful Leo guest who works with botanicals and herbs and the cycle of life through plants. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. But if you're a Leo out there and you want to get an on-air reading about the specific micro seasons and energies in your chart, hit me up at Cycles of Time Podcast on Instagram or through astrosomatics.substack.com. I am so excited about just, continuing to find words that resonate and find energies that resonate, as it really has helped me come into my own identity. So I wish you all a beautiful beginning to the season of the lion. If it's your birthday this week, happy birthday. I'm curious if you're on the gate of stimulation or the gate of influence. And let me know. Happy birthday, happy birthday. As always, thanks so much for your likes, comments, shares, and subscribes to the podcast and the Substack. And so much love as we work through these rapidly changing times, grounding in. Go out there, find yourself a pet rock. Enjoy the heat of the summer before fall comes. And I will talk to you all next Monday. Thanks again for listening. Bye.